Hey everyone, and welcome to Educator Central. I'm so excited to dive into today's topic because it's one that's close to, well, all of our hearts. We're talking classroom management, that crucial but sometimes elusive art of creating a space where learning thrives. Whether you're fresh out of teacher training, rocking that brand new lanyard, or you're a seasoned pro just looking for a few fresh ideas, stick around. We've got 5 chapters packed with practical tips and strategies to help you build a positive and productive learning environment for every student. Because, let's be real, classroom management isn't about being the boss with all the rules. It's about creating a space where everyone feels respected, heard, and ready to learn. So let's get this metaphorical classroom party started. Okay, before we dive into specific strategies, we need to lay the foundation. And that foundation, my friends, is built on relationships. Think of it like this. You could have the most dazzling lesson plan the world has ever seen, but if your students don't feel connected to you, it's going to be a lot harder to get them invested in the Pythagorean theorem or the intricacies of photosynthesis. So, how do you build these magical relationships? Well, it starts with simple things. Learn your students' names, obviously, but go beyond that. What are their interests? What gets them excited? One of my favorite teachers growing up had a bulletin board where we could all post about our hobbies, and it sparked so many great conversations. And speaking of conversations, make time for them. Even just a few minutes of casual chatting before or after class can make a world of difference. Ask about their day, their dog, their latest Minecraft creation. Show genuine interest, and I promise you'll start to see those walls break down. Another key ingredient, respect. Treat your students with the same respect you'd give a colleague. Listen to their ideas, value their opinions, even when they disagree with you. Remember, a classroom should be a place where everyone feels safe to share their thoughts and perspectives. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be best friends with every student. You're their teacher, not their buddy. But by creating a classroom culture built on mutual respect and understanding, you'll be amazed at the difference it makes. Think back to your favorite teachers. Weren't they the ones who saw you, who made you feel valued? That's the kind of environment we're aiming for. And the best part? Building these relationships isn't just good for your students, it's good for you too. Teaching is so much more rewarding when you genuinely enjoy being around the people you're teaching. So, as you embark on this journey, remember that it all starts with connection. Build those relationships, nurture them, and watch your classroom transform into a vibrant community of learners. Alright, now that we've got our awesome foundation of relationships, let's talk about setting the stage for success with clear expectations. Because let's be real, even the most well-intentioned group of students needs a little guidance. But here's the thing, I'm not talking about a 20-page rule book that would make even the most seasoned lawyer sweat. We want to keep it simple, clear, and dare I say, even a little fun. Instead of thinking rules, try framing them as your classroom's shared agreements or guidelines for awesomeness. Get your students involved in creating these guidelines on day one. What kind of learning environment do they want? What's important to them? When students feel ownership over the guidelines, they're much more likely to buy in and follow them. Plus, it's a great way to build that sense of community we were talking about earlier. Now, when it comes to the content of your guidelines, focus on the biggies. Respect for each other and the classroom, active participation, and putting in their best effort. Once you've established your guidelines, display them prominently in the classroom and review them regularly, especially during the first few weeks of school. But remember, rules are only effective if they're consistently enforced. And that brings us to... Okay, so we've built relationships, we've got our awesome guidelines in place, now let's talk about motivation. And no, I'm not talking about those cheesy motivational posters with eagles soaring over mountains, I'm talking about the power of positive reinforcement. Here's the thing, kids, just like all of us, respond so much better to positive reinforcement than to punishment. It's basic psychology. When we feel good about our behavior, we're more likely to repeat it. So how do we put this into practice in the classroom? Well, it's all about catching students doing the right thing and acknowledging it. And this doesn't have to be anything big or time-consuming. A simple, "I love how focused you are right now, Sarah," or "That was a really thoughtful answer," David can go a long way in reinforcing positive behavior. And remember, positive reinforcement isn't just verbal. You can use non-verbal cues like a thumbs up, a smile, or even a little celebratory dance move if you're feeling brave. Another great strategy is to implement a class-wide reward system. This could be something as simple as a sticker chart or a point system where students can earn privileges or small rewards for good behavior and academic achievement. But here's the key: make sure the rewards are meaningful to your students. What motivates a fifth grader might be very different from what motivates a high school senior. And remember, consistency is key. You want to make positive reinforcement a regular part of your classroom culture, not just something you pull out on special occasions. By focusing on the positive, you'll create a more supportive and encouraging learning environment where students feel motivated to do their best. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room: discipline. It's the part of teaching that nobody really wants to talk about, but it's an essential part of classroom management. But here's the good news: discipline doesn't have to be scary or punitive. In fact, the most effective discipline strategies are those that are rooted in respect and consistency. Remember all that work we did building relationships and establishing clear expectations? Well, this is where it really pays off. When students know you care about them and they understand the boundaries, they're less likely to act out in the first place. But let's be real, there will be times when you need to address misbehavior. And when those times come, it's important to stay calm, consistent, and fair. Avoid power struggles or getting into arguments with students in front of their peers. Instead, use a calm and assertive tone to address the behavior directly. And remember, consistency is key. If you let some behavior slide one day and then come down hard on them the next, you're sending mixed messages and creating confusion. When it comes to consequences, try to make them logical and related to the behavior. For example, if a student refuses to put away their phone, a logical consequence might be losing phone privileges for a set amount of time. And always, always, always follow through with consequences. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Otherwise, you're undermining your own authority and sending the message that your words don't mean anything. Finally, don't forget the power of a good old-fashioned conversation. Sometimes, a little one-on-one time is all it takes to get to the root of a behavior problem and find a solution that works for everyone. Alright, we've covered a lot of ground, but here's the secret sauce, the magic ingredient, the thing that ties it all together: engagement. Because let's face it, a bored student is a student who's more likely to become disengaged, restless, and, well, let's just say less than focused on the lesson at hand. So how do we combat the boredom bug? By injecting a healthy dose of fun and excitement into our lessons. And no, I'm not suggesting you need to turn your classroom into a circus, unless that's your teaching style, in which case go for it. It's about finding creative ways to make learning relevant and engaging for your students. Incorporate games, hands-on activities, technology, and even a little bit of healthy competition into your lessons. Think about your students' interests. What gets them excited? Can you find ways to connect your curriculum to their passions? And don't be afraid to think outside the traditional lecture format. Let students take the reins and explore topics through project-based learning, group work, or even student-led discussions. Remember, the more engaged your students are, the less likely they are to act out or disengage. Plus, when students are genuinely interested in what they're learning, they're more likely to retain that information. So ditch the boring worksheets and embrace your inner creative genius. Your students, and your sanity, will thank you for it. That's it for our crash course on classroom management. I hope you found these tips helpful and feel ready to tackle the school year with confidence. Remember, building a positive and productive learning environment takes time, patience, and a whole lot of heart. Don't be afraid to experiment with different strategies and find what works best for you and your students. And most importantly, don't be afraid to ask for help. Reach out to colleagues, mentors, or even your students for support and advice. Now go forth and create a classroom where everyone feels respected, valued, and inspired to learn.